Hi, fellow writer. I'm Angela Booth. Want to write a book? You can come up with 20 ideas in just a few minutes using the methods I'll show you. Let's get started. The first method is by brainstorming titles. This works for fiction and non-fiction. Just go to Amazon.com and click around. You start by choosing an evocative noun if you're writing fiction. For example, you might choose a word like blood or temptation or death or river and then riff off the word. Or if you're writing non-fiction, use numbers. You can use numbers for titles like 100 Ways to, 10 Things Nobody Told You About, 50 Easy Ways to, and so on. Let's see how this works. Okay, here we are at Amazon. Now, let's say you're writing a piece of fiction. You want to write some short stories or you want to write a novel. We'll start off with our seed word, our starter word. I like the word blood. It's very evocative. Okay, let's see what we get. Just click and see where it takes you. Okay, so we've got a whole lot of books. Blood, Bones and Butter. The Blood That Bonds. Ooh, spooky. Blood, an epic history of medicine and commerce. And so on and so forth. Can you see that, with a very few short seconds, you can come up with lots of ideas for titles for books of your own. Okay, now let's go. Let's try non-fiction. Say 100 Ways to, and see what we come up with. 100 Ways to. Well, here we are. 100 ways to motivate yourself. That's always useful. 100 ways to be more creative. 100 ways to simplify your life. Oh, I wish. The $100 startup. Oh, that sounds great. 100 ways to motivate others, and so on and so forth. Can you see that if you spent just a couple of seconds here on Amazon, you could get lots of ideas for non-fiction books of your own? Here's another great way to come up with some titles. Just grab a word from a dictionary and base your title on it. This works best with a paper dictionary. Just flip through the dictionary, open it anywhere, close your eyes, and put your finger on a word. I use an electronic dictionary and I choose a letter. For example, I could choose the letter I. Then I just keep adding words, or rather letters, to it until something pops up that I like. Okay, Ig. I quite like that. What do we get with Ig? Igneous rock? No. Ignite. That's an evocative word. I like it. Okay. Right, we don't want the word itself. Let's look at the thesaurus. Ignite brings up words like heat, warm, chafe, foment, make hot, burn, fire, set fire to, set on fire, kindle, enkindle, and so on and so forth. These are very evocative words. Use them to brainstorm. Write down the word and then write another couple of sentences. Write some ideas images that pop into your mind. Images are great if you're writing fiction because you can often get an entire novel just from an image that's in your mind. I think The French Lieutenant's Woman started when the author had this image in his mind of a woman waiting on a beach. She was in England and she was looking towards France, and apparently that image gave him an entire book. So images are great, and when you use a thesaurus, you'll come up with great words. Just close your eyes and wait for an image. You never know, you might get a short story or an entire novel out of it. This next method of kickstarting your book, kickstarting with weird first sentences, works best when you're writing fiction. All you need to do is grab a notebook, set a timer, and start writing. You might set the timer for 5 minutes or even for 10 minutes. Use some phrases to get you started. Phrases like, I knew I was alone, but then he looked at her, smiled, and then they found the body. She knew it would be a bad day. She got her greatest wish. The key about starting your book with, or your novel rather, because this works for fiction, is to just allow yourself to write. Just close your eyes, drift around dreaming, and then write something. The weirder, the better. You'll be amazed at what you come up with. This is the third method for kickstarting your book today. It works primarily for fiction, but I can imagine using it for non-fiction too. If you have an experience that's made a huge impact on you in some way, you could certainly write a non-fiction book about it. Now, think about it this way. The idea is to actually arouse some emotion in yourself because that inspires you. So think humor and horror. I've been scared 3 times in my life that I can clearly remember. I don't want to relive the experiences, but if I wanted to start a book, I'd write a couple of paragraphs about one of these experiences. Your aim isn't to include the experience in your book, although you could. It's to mine the emotion that's generated from your memories. All emotion is energy. You can use that energy to write. You'll find that once you've written a couple of paragraphs and have scared yourself, or you've started to laugh, you'll start writing, and hey presto, you've started writing your book. So use this method. Think about what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, the best thing, what scares you, and what's funny to you. Just spend, say, 5 minutes with this. You don't know what you'll come up with. Often you'll come up with something intriguing. And I should mention, too, that sometimes this exercise has no discernible results straight away. But a week or so later, you'll come up with the perfect idea for a book. So do give this method a try. Our final method works when you want to write a novel. You kickstart your book by retelling a fairy tale. This is one of my favorite methods. I often ghostwrite novels for others, and the first thing I do is look through my stash of fairy tale books or explore some fairy tales online to come up with some ideas. The benefit of a fairy tale is that you get the entire story, and this is often the hardest thing about writing a novel. You don't just need a collection of characters or a clever idea. You need a complete story from go to woe. Your own novel will rarely resemble the fairy tale, although if people know how to look, they can find the seeds of the fairy tale in the story you end up with. For example, you might have seen the cute movie Tangled. Now that started out as the fairy tale Rapunzel, so Rapunzel becomes Tangled. Fairy tales are huge fun. Screenwriters and novelists use them constantly in their work, either overtly by retelling the fairy tale or as pure inspiration. Spend 10 minutes exploring fairy tales online. You'll find lots at Wikipedia, and you'll find them all over the web. They're great. But remember, you're using the fairy tale as the seed of a story of your own. Have fun with it. I always do. Right, now here's this week's e-zine exercise. I'd like you to choose one of the 4 methods that we've looked at and spend half an hour with it. Just explore it for half an hour and see what you come up with. Often, I'm always amazed that I'll spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour working on something or other, and it seems as though I've got precisely nowhere. Then a couple of days later, I'll get the perfect idea, and that idea stemmed directly from the time that I spent working on it previously. So see what you can come up with when you use one method, but if you don't come up with an idea immediately, don't despair. You've sown a seed, and the seed will sprout. Okay, this is Angela. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.